Hello, welcome to my tube. Please hang out with me. What this video is a video of me painting. There was no previous reference for this painting. The base is simply just how I felt on the day. And what you're going to see next is me unpacking how I feel in color. And while I do that, you can listen to me too. Nice deal. Enjoy. Things we make time for, ultimately, to some level or degree, there's some commitment there. And in the very underbelly of that sort of large, very common thought, perhaps, is this idea of devotion, and how every time we give our attention to something, we are giving our devotion and our time to it, and how fulfillment isn't just a solo experience, but how, like, there's so much duality in the experience of life itself, even when it comes to attention, even when it comes to devotion, and how attention and listening, and as well as being present, are all linked somehow, somewhere, in an instance or in a certain way. So one of the books I listened to in this case was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Considering the fact that if I'm going to read anything that's nonfiction, it is usually in essay form or it's a memoir if I find one that I think is interesting enough or one that focuses on themes I'm interested in. And when I listened to Eckhart Tolle, the big inspiration behind listening to it was Kendrick Lamar's studio album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. When I finished reading this, I then went on to write an essay or like a piece for my Substack. And now I'm sort of seeing the threads in my daily life, and I think that's what a good teaching does. It changes the way that you interact with yourself, with your life, and with those around you. So I have a few apps on my phone, right? And I think everybody does. Everybody has an app they use. Everybody has an app they can't live without. We have apps that connect us to people that are far from us. We have apps that connect us to people that are close to us. We have apps that we like to keep track of our daily lives and habits. And the people who make apps, social media, financial apps, whatever has to do with the user face or a user, or in any case an event, is something that you need to keep improving because you need users to use whatever app more so that you can get more details about the app and usability, as well as how people like to use it. So, for instance, when WhatsApp invented the voice message feature, it was exciting. It was something that other people weren't doing. And being able to send your friends a long form voice note is actually a really great idea. Or your mom, to send her like anything you want to tell her. It's a nice tool to have. And so, as such, your attention perhaps to that particular app will increase, or at least the amount of time that you allocate in a day to that thing. Now, because we live in an attention economy, and what an attention economy is I make money as a platform based on how much time you spend on this platform. So, in a day, for instance, if you're using your Instagram 5 hours out of 8 active hours, I know that I need to show you more content because you're going to be able to engage with more content. So, anyone who's paying something like a Meta subscription, I have to send their content your way because you're likely to be online, you're likely to see it, you're likely to like it. But if, for instance, there's a user who's not very active, disappears for weeks at a time, comes back, then they're not really a great user because you can't really send them the content that other people have paid you to promote, quote unquote. So there's always someone being sold something, even if in this case and instance we're not really paying any cash, but we're paying with our attention because that's what gets people paid. So I hope that kind of makes sense. That's the first layer. Is like this attention economy. It really does run on how much time we spend on anything or apps, you know. And you think attention is not such an important tool. It's not really. I mean, I'm just scrolling on my phone mindlessly. Could be an hour, could be 2 hours, but I mean, I wouldn't really rather be doing anything else, nor do I have even the capacity to do anything else. For instance, I could watch Heat, which is a 2 hour movie, without any problem because the lights, the cameras, the action, the movement, the color grading, everything is keeping me entertained. And so I can stream that on Netflix. But if you put me in a room to have a conversation with someone, I feel 2 hours is a long time to be chatting to one person. That's not how I feel. I love to chat. But that also sort of like having the conversation is less appealing, less exciting. And so the preference is to use your attention on something that will give you joy, something that's pleasurable to you. And though then you don't know you're actually doing it, that's sort of what begins to happen. Now, in real life, a real life example would be if you don't get any form of love or appraisal at home, you will definitely go look for it somewhere else. Now, the somewhere else could be in other people, it could be in the validation of being asked out, it could be in the validation of people constantly telling you you look good or you don't, or people telling you your music is great, people telling you your writing is amazing. So that sort of attention seeking, and perhaps that's maybe a human need because the peacock has such wonderful wings for attention seeking. And I believe that attention seeking at the right time in the right place is actually a great thing because when you seek for attention and it's given to you, I think that's a form of love and devotion, which is ultimately where I'm going with this chat. So there's different things at different points and different intersections in life that require our attention, and we are more willing to give it to one thing or the other. And because the attention we need to give to anything that we're watching or anything we're consuming is very much passive, we're not being challenged, it feeds into the things we believe. In fact, it even makes us believe things that are incorrect or incomplete even more. Because whatever we see and whatever we give our attention to is validating us, which is the second layer. It's validating us, our intelligence, our thought processes, and everything we want to know and believe is being built and, cemented. And you are becoming more of what you already were before you got all the attention that is now sort of also building you into a model type A or model type B or model type C person based on how much you're there to offer your attention. So when it comes to the idea of validation, I think validation is important for human development. I think even relationships work best when there is some sort of validation. But I think we run a risk of then also validating things that we could encourage, or validating things that have room to grow, or validating ideas that, though they have some integrity and intelligence to them, perhaps lack some social awareness, perhaps lack religious sensitivity. And when we are in places and spaces that simply give us an attention whenever we don't really need or deserve it at that particular point in time, it gives room for a lot of foolishness and things that go wrong. And also, ultimately, as a consequence, I think of the highest form, disconnection or a misalignment of sorts between people. In connections, friendships, relationships, whatever you have, if only one party is being given attention and the other party is not being given attention, then what happens is often a disconnect, an emotional disconnect, where someone feels as though their existence is being completely ignored. But I think what that is, with all this thinking I've been doing, is it is an evidence of a lack of devotion, because curiosity leads the way for attention. And when you're curious about something, you will pay attention to it. But if you're not curious, you often won't. And even if you are paying attention, you're paying attention being hyper focused on the validation that attention is giving you, and not so much so how the attention can then expand you, grow you, make you larger because of the experience that you've had. And I think it's actually a quite lovely thing, if you think about it, the idea of devotion. Because if I sit here and I reframe my perspective about doing things or allocating time to something, saying my ability to dedicate an hour to my writing is evidence of my devotion to this craft of writing, I think it also changes the way that you maximize or how you interact with people when you're in their space or around them. Because when you pay attention to certain things, I think it far supersedes even language, I believe. Because if you're able to tell that, oh, when I was speaking to my dear friend Pat the other day, I could tell that she wasn't wearing her ring, you know? And she wasn't wearing her ring, and she complained about a few other things that were going on earlier. So her snapping at me now, honestly, is not personal. I just think she's going through something. Attention to what is happening externally and not so much the hyperfixation of attention of what's happening on the inside allows us to balance out our own feelings. The modern solution to a lot of problems is you need to look within, you need to meditate, you need to self care, you need to be alone. And the most harmful thing about that is how it makes you focus on so many things about yourself. We're all imperfect, so you'll definitely find a few imperfections. And there's plenty of time to ruminate over regrets. And there's plenty of time to do other things and other things, But paying attention or giving your devotion to something that is outside of yourself allows you to be fully immersed in that experience. So the reason why I brought up the power of now when I started this chat is just because what Eckhart Tolle teaches in the book is you cannot change anything tomorrow. You cannot change anything in the past. You cannot change anything in the future. You can only change something in the moment, like right there, right then. And with everything, perhaps, even with the attention that we pay, the devotion that we give, it is only in that instance that we are able to really feel the love or be present. So I guess that's why it's so unfair, or it feels a little as though one doesn't love or is not devoted or committed to someone if they can't stay off their phone, or if they can't stay off their Netflix, or if they can't stop listening to their music. It's almost as though this is not worth my attention at the moment, it's not worth my time, and so I'd rather not. Even you, bestie, listening to this podcast up until this point to a certain level is devotion, be it to knowledge, be it to my voice, be it to my ideas. There is a level of attention that you're providing to me, which is more something to say about how much you hold me in your capacity than it can be really about you. I think the secondary impact of you focusing on how it makes you feel is then the change that happens in that system. And the most fair thing to do, if I ever was to sit with you and say, hey, what did you think about this episode? Is to also devote myself to listening and understanding the feedback without really looking for what makes me feel great or validates me, but more so trying to look at the human in you that is expressing these ideas in this manner and in this way. I think pay attention, focus, look at what's right in front of you, be able to really see it, be able to really be there, be present, to flow in the moment is actually, I believe, one of the best and greatest gifts in the world. A moment in time where you are in a flow state with those around you is a divine blessing because at that point, I think there is equal amounts of devotion and being carried in a room. I was speaking to one of my friends earlier today, and he was just sharing about how, societies are all different, and society is an average of all the people that exist in that society. And so, whatever you see in any sort of subgroup or subculture is usually just the traits that exist in the larger society, but at different extremities along the spectrum. I think that's sort of the way that attention is. For instance, I like to doodle. I don't need my doodles to be perfect. And so I don't need to give them maximum attention. I can be thinking about something else while doodling. I like to, however, when I paint, be fully immersed in the painting that I have no time to think about anything else except for what I'm doing. And I think that sort of attention, being able to escape the self in the moment and be able to transcend that, to be able to exist in a place where you can fully give your attention to something is a testament of love. And I think every single time we say we love something or we are a fan of something, I think we shouldn't be really focused on the outward show of that. The outward show being the knowledge, oh, I know that my best friend likes the color green. I know when her birthday is, and I know which hospital she was born in. I think those things are great for another layer, which is memory. But in the instance of attention and being able to capture something and move with it, devotion is a huge part of that. And it's not something that should be taken lightly given how little of it there is in the world. When an artist sings or plays the guitar or plays the piano in the middle of the streets or on the side of the streets, when you stand and watch them or listen, that is devotion. That is appreciation. That is how you say, I love you to the artist. It is to stand in their creation and say, I am in awe. I think with every single creation or creature, even beauty and the admiration of beauty is actually being captured so much so by the existence of another that you forget yourself. Because if you remember yourself, other feelings start to creep in, doubt of one's beauty, jealousy, a comparison. And I think, these sort of problems in our interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships, they are caused by the fact that we can't name certain things or we don't know the root cause or we don't know how things are connected. But I think that's ultimately it. Every single time one has cried about not being seen or not being heard, it is usually a desire for devotion or to be devoted to something and feel the same warmth from the body that one is devoted to or desires that devotion from. Perfect love casts away all fear. And love is many things, and one of them is attention. It's being able to say, I am right here in this moment with you. I may not be there in 3 days. I may not be there in six. Maybe I wasn't there 2 months ago. But right now, I am here. And being able to stay in that present moment without conjuring ideas of the past, or any hopeful ghosts of the future is the secret to, I think, peace, or at least a part of it, a bit of it. And yeah, I think that's the tea today. I want to be more this year. I want to be more relaxed, more real, and not really be crazy about how I sound, except to share what I think. So this one, purely just like attention as devotion, and looking at how everything else is related, and how taking a moment to step back and ask yourself if you're really paying attention. And when you're not paying attention, being able to step back and be like, okay, I want to pay attention. The first step to realizing that something is off is the realization part. So try not to be ashamed or shame yourself into change, but just be conscious of, oh, I think for a minute there, I forgot how to be in the moment. I forgot how to be attentive. I don't forgot how to be focused, how to give attention, how to hold space, and also being able to ask for it, because I think there's that song by Dustin Conrad, which is Love and Devotion. And the song opens up and says, all my love and devotion. And then there's a couple of drums after that. I think it's such a beautiful thing because I can love you and I can devote myself to you and I can devote this time to you, which is, if you've ever been in the Christian space, or if you're a Christian, or if you're familiar with that space, you know that they have something called devotions. And devotions are essentially a moment in time you take apart to sit down and connect, with the word. And this connecting to the word is how they stay connected to the source. When music people who sing, who want to sing forever and want to improve, they devote themselves to studio. People who want to be the greatest painters in the world, they devote themselves to understanding paint. People want to be the greatest writers, they devote themselves to words. Devotion and attention is how we come out loving something more. It's how we realize that there are cracks in what we know, and it's how we make room for the heartbreak of the things that we're yet to discover. But only when we're paying attention are we able to be transformed by all of those experiences in a way that is not performative or an act, but a way that's true and integral to who then we become as people. So that's the tea. It's wonderful when a creation reveals itself to you, when the brush just yields to your requests. Also, when the brush teaches you its ways. There's so much learning to be done in this lifetime. There's so much to tell. There's so much to produce. We are made in the image of the Creator. And so it is such a fulfilling practice to create. It has been wonderful for me to create this too. And I think sometimes we forget that attention is devotion. We demand it from people, we pay people for it, we put a bank behind it. But at the end of the day, devotion is yours to give. You choose what you give your time to, your attention, your feelings, yourself. We understand ourselves more when we dive into the work, when we let it find us, when we're ready to make the mistakes, to correct our wrongs, to fill in the blanks. I think it's enjoyable in life when you get to those points. Not enjoyable in the sense of no pain, but enjoyable in the sense of peace. Things just work out for themselves, bestie. And it's lovely to become, it's lovely to become, it's lovely to become. I think I love the word beautiful. I think maybe I am slightly obsessed with beauty. Was I thinking about beauty here? No. I was just feeling very sad, terribly sad actually. I was thinking about Nina Simone's Blood on the Leaves. The soundtrack, the song, just kept playing in my head. Blood on the leaves, blood on the trees. If I was a tree, would I look like that? Thank you for sticking around. You're really cool. Shout out. Appreciate you. Subscribe, like this video, share it with your people. The ones that you know will appreciate it. I'm not really here for making things look amazing. Just here to make things real. Communicate real. Communicate my heart. It's my archive. And it was soul sisters, soul brothers, soul brothers. I mean,